The question on the minds of Eagles fans everywhere this offseason has been, when will the team extend Carson Wentz? What will happen with the franchise quarterback? Now, the Eagles originally picked up his 5th-year option, giving them a window of luxury to try and work out the finer details. Just how much of a gamble did Howie Roseman want to take, knowing the injury history, knowing what the other quarterbacks around him could get? How many chips did the Birds want to place on the shoulders of Carson Wentz? And we got our answer on late Friday evening. The team announced that Carson Wentz had signed a 4-year deal through 2024, meaning Wentz will be 31 years old by the time the deal expires. Now, I want to preface this video. This is a reaction, and there are details that are still emerging. We've just found out how much a contract is worth. We don't yet know how that's broken down. And just a heads up, guys, I need you to stick around this channel from Friday through Monday. We're going to have so much content, including breakdowns on the Carson Wentz contract, and maybe a special Eagles film room, podcasts, reaction videos, and so much more. So if you're not subscribed, hit that big red button. The one thing to keep in mind is that Howie Roseman is a wizard when it comes to contracts. If you look at Ertz, if you look at Johnson, even Malcolm Jenkins, who has 0 guaranteed money for the next 2 years as it stands, we know he likes to backload deals and incentivize the life out of them. So we could see a smaller base salary for Wentz in 2019 and 2020, knowing that they were gonna pay him $22 million in the 5th-year option anyway. Now, that information aside, here's everything we know so far and just some basic reaction to it. Carson Wentz's deal is said to be worth $128 million over 4 years, and that totals out around $32 million annually. Now, again, we don't know how much of that is backloaded, but if you're to take a base salary idea or a rough cap hit for each season, you're looking at around $25 million until the numbers come out. One thing to bear in mind is this may well eclipse the deal Russell Wilson signed previously, and as I mentioned in videos, podcasts, and articles before, one man to look at would be Andrew Luck, who was in a similar circumstance when he signed a 5-year deal worth $122 million. And again, while information is scarce, there are some takeaways we can analyse right now. The first being Howie Roseman has pipped the rest of the league once more. Exactly the same with Fletcher Cox, he did exactly the same with Zach Ertz, he's done the same with free agent acquisitions. If there is a market that is set to heat up, that could see a major shift in landscape that could leave the Eagles at a severe disadvantage, we see Roseman strike first more often than not. This is no exception. If you look around the league, you've got guys like Jared Goff, Dak Prescott, and Deshaun Watson, all from that same draft class, all are looking at big time deals. Now, we know Dak Prescott is going to get a payday for better or worse. We know Jared Goff will for better or worse. And the risk the Eagles would take in letting Carson Wentz play out what would have been his contract year, what would have been that 5th-year option next year, is that the monster money would be set by the teams with slightly higher cap space. If you look at what the Cowboys could pay Dak Prescott, what the Rams could pay Jared Goff, by setting the tone like they did when they made Fletcher Cox a $100 million man in 2016, it lets the rest of the league play catch up. Are they going to get a better deal than Wentz? Maybe, but then that's the team at a disadvantage. And that's not the only race that Roseman has won. He's beaten Father Time, and the reason I say this is the only window of opportunity the Eagles had to sign Carson Wentz where they had the ultimate leverage. And what I mean by that is he's had 2 season injuries in a row. We know he's had the ACL, we know he had the back problem, and if you're looking at what you've actually got versus potential, this is the only time you can talk to Carson Wentz man to man and say, hey, 2 years in a row now you haven't finished out a regular season for us. It's the only time you can maybe laden that deal with injury-based incentives or snap counts or playoff bids. Because as we know, Carson Wentz now has a full off season with offensive coordinator Mike Groh, where Wentz is the #1 quarterback. He has got new weapons, including 2 shiny new running backs, JJ Arcega-Whiteside, and an elite tight end tandem that could well become the best in the NFL, not to mention the league's best deep threat receiver, Deshaun Jackson. This offense has the potential to be the most dominant in the NFL next season. And if Carson Wentz even shows half the potential that he did during that sophomore season, then he's going to put up Pro Bowl numbers. There's no denying it. And if you let Carson Wentz walk into this year and the next without giving him that payday, you let the other quarterbacks earn more, and Carson Wentz balls out and he eclipses the numbers he recorded in 2017, then you're going to be paying a lot more money than you would be right now. So it's a gamble from Howie Roseman, but it's an extremely educated one. This is a sentiment from the team that Carson Wentz is the guy, that they do believe in him despite everything else. So it's a very impressive move from the front office to say, look, this is where we stand. If you're going to look at average rankings for salary next year, Carson Wentz is now the 4th highest paid quarterback in the league based on that average, behind Wilson, Roethlisberger, and Aaron Rodgers. You can certainly make the case he's a better quarterback or will bring more to the table than an aging Ben Roethlisberger. He sits above Kirk Kirk Cousins, Jimmy Garoppolo, Matt Ryan and Matthew Stafford. That is good company to be in. I think you can safely say that when healthy, Carson Wentz is indeed a top 10 quarterback, is verging on top 5, maybe a little bit above that. Is this a risk? Yeah, absolutely, but let's not forget the caliber of player that Carson Wentz is. He set a career high in completion percentage last year with 69%, despite playing on a recovering ACL tear, despite playing with a back problem. The second overall pick has completed 923 of 1,448 passing attempts, and ranks third in the NFL in passing touchdowns per game, trailing just Patrick Mahomes and Andrew Luck. He ranks 5th in passer rating. He also finished 7th with a career high 102.2 passer rating, as well as becoming the 3rd quarterback in NFL history to register a 100 plus passer rating in at least 2 of his first 3 campaigns. Now, with all of that, that's just on last year playing injured. Let's not forget just how brilliant he was during that iconic Super Bowl run. The 11-2 record he led the team to, ranking 1st in the NFL for touchdowns, surpassing Tom Brady's MVP campaign from the year before, despite playing in 4 less games. Carson Wentz is the real deal, and we're seeing how fluid he moves in OTAs. You're seeing the chemistry he's building with the receivers. You get the feeling this is brewing. There is a storm brewing in Philadelphia, and you do not want to be on the receiving end of it defensively. So the Eagles had to pony up the money. If they didn't, they'd be losing out in the long run. They'd be hurting themselves financially and losing all leverage to keep Wentz for as long as possible, for as cheap as possible, which is the dream for any team and their franchise quarterback. The Eagles are lucky enough to have the future of their franchise in Carson Wentz. Keeping him had to be the absolute priority, and I think fans can just be safely happy that Howie Roseman is a GM with his fingers so firmly pressed on the pulse of the league that any minor tremor he's ready to act upon. But let me know what you think, guys. How are you feeling about the Carson Wentz extension? Are you drinking beers tonight? Are you partying? Or are you a little bit concerned? Let me know down in the comments. Follow me on Twitter at LiamJenkinsPSN. I'll see you next time.